Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. It's our last webinar of the season, so we're happy to welcome Mike Swidersky of the Grey-Dufferin Community Pasture to talk to us about Ontario's community pasture programs and give us a little bit of a rundown too on the Grey-Dufferin Community Pastures. I thank you for welcoming us tonight, as I know a few of you might have taken a little bit of time out from the Leafs game tonight, because I know it's pretty exciting. I know they're just out for the first period now, so hopefully we can get this wrapped up a little bit before they finish up the game and we can get back to it. So anyway, with that, I'll just get off a little bit here. So if you missed out on our last webinar, don't worry, it's all posted online, and you can see what Steve Eby and Dan Darling had to say a little bit about Ontario's risk management program. You can find that as well as all of our past webinars. They're all featured on the Ontario Beef website. So if you just go there and look under programs, you can find all of those there. There's lots of great information about programs that you can find in Ontario, as well as different feedback and information that other producers have made use of in Ontario that you might find helpful to yourself. As well, things have already been kicking off for the Canadian Beef Industry Conference that's taking place in Calgary again this year. If you're interested in that, the early bird registration is now open until June 15th. So if you're looking for the deal to head out there, now would be the time to start registering for that. It's a really great conference. I have gone out for the past number of years, and last year it was in Ontario. And it's just a great opportunity to network with other farmers from across Canada, and lots of great sessions to attend and learn more about what's going on in the industry. So I encourage you to just take a look and learn more, and take the opportunity. Last year we did have it in Ontario, and they every other year do it in Calgary, so that's where it is this year. So next year it might be back east. I'm not sure yet, but definitely a chance to really take advantage of if you're interested in learning more about the industry in Canada. If you're interested in learning more about different programs that we are doing here in Ontario, there's lots of different places you can go to do that. You can check out our website, sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the bulletin board. You can do that on our website. Lots of places on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And the summer is really a great time to check out those 4 different programs. I know that we've got a lot in the works right now that we're trying to pull together for the summer, just as ways to connect and network and learn some more. So definitely keep an eye out on those. And hopefully we'll have a bit more information as the weeks come forward for ways to get together with people from across the industry. So with that, I'm going to bring back Mike here so that he can get on with his presentation for the evening. So I'm going to move that over to him. Perfect. You're all set to go there, Mike.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my home. Tonight I'm going to talk about community pastures and the opportunities they provide for young producers. Just give a quick outline of an overview of sort of the history of community pastures in Ontario, where the pastures are and what they do, as well as the opportunities and benefits they provide. And then I'll leave you with a list of the contacts of the individual pastures. So most of the community pastures were established 40 to 50 years ago as part of a federal and a provincial government initiative. A lot of it was called the ARTA program, and a lot of the community pastures are still referred to by the locals as the ARTA pastures. believe the Bruce Pasture 2 years ago celebrated their 50th anniversary, and I know the Dufferin Pasture where I'm from, yeah, they just recently celebrated. Well, they were established right around 1977, I think, to 79, so they're close to that 40 years. It was started as a method to help young beef farmers get a start, as well as to showcase sort of pasture innovation and stewardship. The pasture farms were downloaded by the provincial government just under 20 years ago during the Mike Harris government, at which point the Community Pastures formed an MOU with OMAFRA. An interesting fact, the Community Pastures in Western Canada, they have over the last few years, they have been going through a similar event where they're being the responsibility of them is no longer with the government. The 11 after that downloading, the 11 pastures paid a mortgage for 10 plus 1 years, and at that point, the Association of Community Pastures owns the pasture. So the individual pastures technically own the pastures, but the deeds are in the name of the Ontario Association of Community Pastures, and that's basically just a safety, so none of the pastures would sort of go rogue, or to ensure that they stayed as pastures and they were safe for the long term as community pastures. How do they function and operate? The pastures all have a board of directors. In Dufferin, the Grey-Dufferin pasture, it is representatives from the Grey and Dufferin cattlemen's, Grey and Dufferin County, as well as a representative from each Federation of Agriculture. The other pastures, they have various representation. Some of the pastures, it's all patrons who are on the board, and others there's no patrons at all. So it does vary from pasture to pasture. As I mentioned, there's 11 community pastures across the province. I'm just gonna list them here, as well as talk about what type of stock they handle there. So Algoma, they run stockers, Bruce County stockers, Dufferin County stockers, Ice Lake in the Manitoulin, they run cow-calf pairs. Leeds, they have stockers, cow-calf pairs, and actually a few dairy heifers. Manitoulin, it's actually called Manitoulin Stalker. Quinte, they have stalkers and dairy heifers. Rainy River, they have stalkers, cow-calf pairs, as well as breeding heifers. Temiskaming, stalkers and pairs. Thunder Bay, cow-calf pairs. Victoria, they run market steer and heifer stalkers, as well as a group of breeding heifers. And from those 11 community pastures, there's 198 patrons, and that represents 6,300 head of cattle, and that does not count the calves on the pairs. So it is a fair chunk of capacity for pasturing cattle, as well. It does represent a good number of patrons as well. Sort of going through this fairly quickly, but the opportunities and benefits, and a lot of these opportunities and benefits in the cattle industry, it's not only for young people, but generally the cattle producers at all. And I know in the at the Grey-Dufferin pasture, we do have a range of people, patrons, and there is a good number of young producers, and we do also have a number of long-term patrons who have had cattle there for close to 20 years. So an opportunity, it is a place to pasture cattle. The grazing land in a lot of parts of Ontario is becoming scarce, and the beef farmers, I think most of us in the last decade have lost a number of farms to cash crop production, and the grazing land is becoming scarce. So people are looking and need a place to pasture cattle. And the community pastures offer a good starting point or a tool that aids in continuing expansion for producers. Whether it's starting with that 5 or 10 head just as an initial investment, or as a place to where there's not room for growth at home, a place to put those cattle for the summer. And we do see a few on the Grey-Dufferin where we run straight stockers. There is a few people, they keep feedlot operators, they keep their pens relatively full in the summer, and then and have them emptied out by the time those grass yearlings come off, and they get to take advantage of the really good gain of those yearlings coming off of pasture. Also, it's a huge labor saving, and it's for I guess for any business, that labor is a big issue, especially for farmers. So it allows you to share a labor unit. So if it's 20 or 50, 60 head that you're putting on there, that sometimes that might take up less than a quarter of your day to manage that. But if you can pool those cattle with a neighbor with one unit of labor, which you can't really get a part unit of labor when you're hired help or employees. So that it is a huge labor saver, allowing people to free up their own labor to do other things in their business. It also provides a good ability to compare your livestock. There's lots of places we can compare. We get to compare beef cattle, whether that's in the showroom, in the sale barn, or the community pastures provide a good place to compare our stock with in a commercial environment beside like type cattle, and that in some ways is the ultimate, besides the sale barn, that is the ultimate place to sort of test our stock. And the community pastures continue to provide a place to do research and demonstration, whether it's a grazing demonstration project like the Grey-Dufferin pasture and Victoria Pasture did a number of years ago with association with bfoUP, or grazing, and I know we generally have, we've had people studying birds and pollinators and stream crossings, and Ducks Unlimited is involved in quite a number of other pastures as well. It just provides a venue for academia as well, and others to do that research and demonstration. And the pastures are generally quite keen to try new products and just try new things, and are generally open with tours and open to the public to see sort of those new things or tried things, both in success and failure. Here's some contact information. This didn't really show up very well. I had trouble preparing this slide, but I think it will work. And if anybody needs that, I can email it to them as well. Oops. All right, that's all I have. I hope I've answered quite a few questions. But if anybody has any questions, I will answer those at this point.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Mike. So I'll just come back on here to ask a few questions, and I'll wait for a few people to ask here, but I've got a few. So I had one guy who knew he wasn't going to be on here send me some questions beforehand. So one of those was, is preference given to younger producers versus older established operations when selecting cattle to be placed on community pasture, was a question that he had.
And that would be something that the selection is generally up to the local pasture committee, but I know in Dufferin County, if there is a Grey-Dufferin pasture, if there is a new person, we make sure we find a space for them. I think, I believe Victoria Pasture, all new entrants, if they apply, they probably don't get in the first year, but they will get in the second year for sure. I know that Pastures generally, they do encourage young producers, but the final selection is up to the local committee to select that.
Okay, and then he had one other question was, so what kind of decides why you guys just, or like certain community pastures just stick to stockers and don't have any of the cow-calf pairs? What kind of is that deciding factor?
I think that's generally kind of tradition.
Having any cow-calf pairs on there.
Yeah, I think it's sort of tradition, and I know over the years some of the pastures that has changed a little bit based on the demand, and I think that will continue to change as sort of the way cattle are raised. I think we'll probably see some of the pastures probably run less yearlings and more either breeding heifers or cows, just because that seems to be sort of the demand. A lot of the feedlots seem to are backgrounding cattle out west now rather than grassing them, or just feeding them in their feedlot. So I think that has changed over the years, and I think it will sort of continue to evolve.
Okay. Another questions. Now we've got some coming in. How does the pasture upgrade their facilities? Like, what is the cash flow? What are the fees? I'm assuming that's decided by the panel or the board or whatever, but how
most of the pastures have sort of a registration fee, and that registration fee would cover the processing. So it would cover the tags, it would cover dewormer, salt, mineral, and that is decided by the committee. Most of the pastures charge per head per day fee. Grey-Dufferin pasture is the only one that does does it by the pound. Yeah, so that's sort of how the pricing has been decided from the local pastures. I would say that some of the pastures have been more aggressive over the years. Some of them have sort of managed as a break-even pastures, and others have been a little more aggressive with their pricing in order to maintain their facilities. The structure of the pastures is kind of a unique setup because they're a non-profit organization that actually have large values in assets. The way it's structured, it's difficult to go to the bank and get an operating loan. So most of these pastures, they do have at the end of the year, they do have a fair bit of cash in their banks, but that cash is used as operating money for fertilizer, fencing costs, veterinarian costs through the year. So it is kind of a little different setup than most of our businesses are.
Okay. This is more a question that I had, and it's kind of coming up here too. When I was kind of looking around on kind of online and everything like that and Googling, when I try to search for Association of Community Pastures and everything, nothing really comes up online. So where would a young person go to try to find like these contacts that you're handing out? What would be the best place for one of our listening watchers here, or somebody who's looking? What would be the best place for them to kind of reach out to go to find this information that you're giving us tonight for contact information?
Say most of the local, and it is, I've Googled it as well, and it is pretty much, not many things are dead ends on Google these days, but the Association of Ontario Community Pastures is kind of that dead end. And I would say talk to your local county beef farmer or cattlemen associations, and if in doubt, I'm pretty sure you in the BFO office can probably point them in the right direction as well. But that is something I will bring to our next annual Association Community Pastures annual meeting, that maybe there does need to be a better contact, because it is really kind of old school.
Yeah. Okay. And then just to kind of go with that, another question.
Yeah.
Another question kind of came up. Are there opportunities to come and visit community pastures to learn more about rotational grazing? This is a question that's come up here. Do some of the community pastures provide those opportunities?
I think most of them do. Like Grey-Dufferin pasture, we have an annual tour. It's usually the first, I think it was the 4th of July last year, so it's usually between the 4th and the 10th of July, and we have a beef on the bun and a wagon tour, and we go through and show everybody what we're doing there, and we generally have kind of that 75 to 100 people come through. I believe Bruce has a tour every year. Victoria, they have a kind of a tour and ATV ride to look at all their cattle and pastures. I believe most of them have an event like that. Part of the sort of the history of the pastures is to share that information, and even if they don't, most of these pastures, I believe, would be welcome, if you can get a hold of them, would be welcome to sort of showcase what they're doing, because most of them are doing a pretty bang up job of management and showcasing sort of what Ontario beef producers are doing.
Yeah. Is there certain criteria that the board, or when you're assessing people that come into into the community pastures and apply for it, are there certain criteria that are really like bang on that you guys look for those who are going to be a part of the community pasture?
Like as far as the people, like the farmers, or the stock in general?
A little bit of both. Give me some of both there.
Like I know some of the pastures, there is a huge demand for them, and they do turn away people every year, or limit the number of stock that goes on them, and so they would generally, like Bruce pasture, for example, they only take people within the county of Bruce. They don't take producers from outside the county. And I know generally all the pastures have a fairly standard protocol for those cattle coming in. You know, they have to be vaccinated, dehorned, castrated. They have to be purchased or on the farm for a certain amount of time before they go out to grass. So they can't be bought at the stockyards the morning before the cattle come on and then taken to the pasture right away. There needs to be sort of a time that they're back out of the sales barn. And things and sort of like I mentioned, that vaccination protocol is pretty important as well. And you know, and then there's also once they do come to pasture, generally it's up to the pasture. You know, if there's something that has behavioral problems, they can be sent home as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then do any of the pastures, like, is there any winter grazing that goes on or anything like that, or is it just a set season, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, they're all seasonal pastures. Yeah, there's no wintering, and some of the pastures have what they call short keep cattle, midterm and as well as the full season. So they'd have some of those bigger cattle, stocker cattle come in and sort of make use of the fast growing grass, and then they would come off early. So there's a bit of difference between all of them that way.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, I think we've gotten through most of our questions now, and you definitely answered a lot of the questions I had about community pastures, because like you were saying, it's a bit of a dead end online when you're trying to find stuff there. So no, it's definitely good. I think this is a really great way, this webinar, to get some information out there, and appreciated your time, taking the time out tonight to talk with us, Mike. And no, it definitely enlightened, I think, a number of people here about the opportunities that are available to them, and what they can kind of take advantage of in helping them maybe get a few more cattle out there and establish a little bit further, for sure.
Yeah, and as I listed at the beginning, my contact information, and I try to share a bit of stuff on Twitter as well. And if anybody has any questions about that, give me a call or an email and get in touch with me, and I'm more than happy to answer more questions as they come up.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, we definitely appreciate it, Mike, and this is a good kind of wrap up for the season of our bfoUP webinars. So hopefully everybody enjoys the rest of their spring, and hopefully it's finally getting to be spring now, and we get a little bit more sunlight, and hopefully everybody has a good evening. So thanks again, Mike, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Yeah, thanks all. Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.